type, where the other eye, I'm sorry, the image is not very bright, but the moment you cover one of the eyes, the fixing eye has an increase in the nystagmus, which particularly beats in the direction of the seeing eye. So when you switch your fixation, when you cover one eye versus the other, the eye with which is the seeing eye, the beating of the nystagmus is in that direction. So that's identifying a latent manifest or a fusion maldevelopment syndrome. The important thing to identify fusion maldevelopment is that there is no need to neuroimage. That's because of a fusional anomaly early on. Whereas any other nystagmus, you have to at least go through all the workups, but in a fusion maldevelopment or a manifest latent, you need not. Spasmus nutans we talked about, neuroimaging is recommended because in the initial period, a glioma or a tumor there can manifest as a spasmus nutans. Indications of imaging. All cases of acquired nystagmus, periodic alternating nystagmus, seesaw nystagmus, spasmus nutans, or what you found was an infantile nystagmus syndrome but has disc pallor and that has not been investigated. So a small child with disc pallor with nystagmus, image because you don't know what's the cause of the poor vision. Just a quick about workup. The most important thing from an ophthalmological point of view is to manage the head posture. And the head posture often will not stare you in the face. As you'll see, this girl is reading down the chart, and you can see it's manifesting her head posture. You can measure it with a goniometer, but you can, a good estimate is just like this. You can see this is her real head posture. And the moment her visually demanding task is increasing, she starts having a head posture so that she can see better. She sees okay with a straight head, but the nystagmus is significant and reduces the vision. As she is asked to read something finer, her nystagmus will hinder her from reading it better. So she acquires that head posture, which may be inconvenient. Therefore, she does not have it all the time. And that's the only thing we can really manage. The nystagmus can be measured by an ENG or a VNG, video nystagmography. And again, it's fairly easy. The important thing is to know the kind of slow phase, but that's again in differentiation. From management point of view, you can get to know that which gaze, what is the angle at which it is minimum, and that's your surgical intervention we'll talk about. So the aims of treatment for nystagmus: to improve eyes visual acuity, which will stabilize the eyes, to decrease the oscillopsia, and to shift the null zone to the primary position. How do you intervene to improve vision in a nystagmus? So it's in this small two lines you can see that the patient of nystagmus is actually seeing. The rest of the time, the brain has actually blanked out the images. Like we don't see anything if our eyes are moving, showing fast saccades. We don't see anything. We don't see that intervening fast picture. So the brain sees when the eyes are relatively still. So that's when the brain is seeing, and that's what you need to broaden or increase. So all your surgeries are designed to increase this and bring a larger part of the eye movement within this small 3-degree of fixation point. So that's what your aim of surgery would be. How can you intervene? The best thing is, of course, a good refractive correction, treatment of amblyopia. These are the most important things. Then you have drugs and neurosurgery. Of course, if there's a tumor or something, or drugs have been tried. Acupuncture and biofeedback has been used to control the motility in the oculomotor system. And of course, botulinum toxin, prisms, and surgery I'll just mention. So glasses, contact lenses, prisms, occlusion to improve vision, medical and surgical treatment. Optical correction is the single most powerful intervention any of us can do in a patient of nystagmus. So whenever a patient of nystagmus comes, give him the best corrected visual acuity. That itself dampens the nystagmus. Treat amblyopia. Latent manifest type of nystagmus itself gets corrected if the vision is equal in either eyes. Prisms are not very useful. The only advantage is that in congenital nystagmus or infantile nystagmus syndrome, base out prisms stimulate a bit of convergence. And convergence has been seen to dampen the nystagmus. The nystagmus is least in an adducted position of the eyes. So you can give base out prisms, and maybe the amplitude may decrease to an extent. Drugs have really not been very successful at the moment, although I heard a free paper today about the role of one of the topical drugs to improve nystagmus, and if that is promising, it would be a good thing for us in management of nystagmus. Botulinum toxin has been tried to inject retrobulbally to prevent the movement of both the eyes, but again, that's not so great. We have tried contact lenses, auditory biofeedback, and acupuncture, and all of these have shown some effect, some improvement, but really not something that is sustained in the long term. This was one of our theses we had done, and we found that acupuncture actually decreases the nystagmus, but after the needle is removed, over time it just comes back to the original. So during the time the treatment was going on, there was some improvement. Our surgical options is one to induce adduction, which, as I said, dampens the nystagmus, so you can weaken the medial recti slightly and have the patient forcefully adduct or converge, and that dampens the nystagmus. We can shift the null position. A patient who has a null position with a head posture, you can shift the null position to the primary position, so the best vision comes in the primary gaze, and of course, surgeries to reduce the amplitude of nystagmus. So you have correction of face turn, you have a lot of surgeries, the Kastenbaum's procedure, the Anderson's procedure. We prefer the augmented Anderson's procedure where we operate on the yoke muscles. So if the patient has a right face turn, that means both the eyes are facing left. Our aim is to move both those eyes to primary position. So we weaken the lateral rectus of the left eye and the medial rectus of the right eye. Essentially, we've shifted the position of the eyes to straight gaze. The aim is to shift that the null position from that position to primary gaze. We use the augmented Anderson's where we use recti recessions of 12 mm for the lateral rectus and 9 mm for the medial rectus. Of course, they are larger than what you normally would do in a comitant squint, but here we want a large movement. It's just a recession of the two recti, yoke muscles, and of course, the advantage of such a thing is that it is an easily reversible modality. You've just weakened the recti, you can advance them again if there is a problem. If you've accidentally operated on a periodic alternating nystagmus and the face turn reverses, you can do the yoke muscle weakening procedures on the other side. So you can just convert it to all four recti recessions if you accidentally operate on a pan. So this was among one of those cases we had operated. You can see this is the right face turn, the eyes are left, you weaken the left lateral rectus and the right medial rectus, and you have a post-op straight gaze. You can even document that. You can see this was the primary, this was primary gaze, this was dextroversion and levoversion. So it was minimum, your aim was to get the null into primary position. So there is nystagmus on left gaze and right gaze, that will remain. You've only shifted the null position from an eccentric gaze to the primary gaze. You can do vertical head postures also, correction of chin up, chin down, or even head tilt. So this was one of the child who had a head tilt, and we operated on the superior and the inferior obliques to correct the head posture. Amplitude reduction has been done by doing all four recti recessions or the Hertel-Deloso procedure. And all four recti recessions, we recess bilateral, lateral rectus 12 mm and bimedial recessions 9 mm. So this places these muscles retroequatorially and tends to dampen the nystagmus. Although in the long term we have found that it does tend to come back a little, but patients tend to feel better. So the advantages is that patients are usually fairly satisfied. You may document 1 or 2 lines improvement in visual acuity. The advantage is that the muscles, the saccades are weak, are slower. So you've achieved your aim of prolonging the foveation time, and it does cause a minimal limitation of movement, but that's usually not too much. The risk is of consecutive exotropia. The eyes have a risk of going outwards, and sometimes you may have to revise your surgery and get the alignment back. Just a word about the Hertel-Deloso procedure. Not much has been done. It's just that all the 4 horizontal recti, you just remove them and replace them at the very site after cauterizing the edges. So the aim is to dampen what is called the feedback mechanism of the recti, which causes the nystagmus. So it's supposed to dampen that and be effective in reducing the nystagmus. But other than the group of Hertel and Deloso, there's not much documents in literature available, but hopefully if it's promising, it may be advantageous. So just to say that nystagmus therapy really requires a lot of management and a lot of involvement from your side, and yet we do have a lot of ground to cover before we can give good relief. Thank you.